Welcome to the Religion, Philosophy and Ethics Induction lesson. I hope you really enjoy it. On the slide now are the 3 areas in the bridging unit. It is important that this is completed well, as it will provide an excellent start to your course. Bring your work to your first lesson in September. We would also like you to purchase this textbook and 2 other books. They're available on Amazon and other online sites. Second-hand copies is absolutely fine, although you may prefer a new copy of your textbook so that it is a clean copy and isn't already highlighted and annotated, but that's completely up to you. When I had a look on Amazon, they were very reasonably priced. So for the lesson today, you need to have watched the TED Talk by Frans de Waal. It's called Evolved Morality and is 11 minutes long. You can pause the video to watch this now, and I'll see you back here shortly. To check your understanding, having watched the video, here are some statements which are either true or false. Have a go and make a note of your answers. You will need to pause the video to do this because I'm going to be going on shortly. So let's go through the answers. So number 1 was true. These are the 2 core factors of morality. Question number 2 was false. Reciprocity is linked to justice and fairness. Empathy is linked to compassion. Number 3 was also false. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the emotions of another, whereas sympathy is the ability to feel pity and sorrow for someone else's misfortune. Number 4, this was true. So the chimpanzee was pulling the box due to reciprocity. He was hoping to get a favour returned to him in the future. It's a bit like the old adage, you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. Number 4 was false. So empathy via the cognitive channel, which involves mentally taking the perspective of another person, is a very difficult thing to do and is not shown by all mammals, but only by elephants and some apes. Number 6 was true. Number 7. So capuchin monkeys preferred the pro-social choice most of the time. So we're exhibiting a form of empathy. And number 8, this was false. So de Waal argues that this shows an evolved morality which has no need for God or religion to explain it. So philosophers often formulate a series of premises leading to a conclusion in order for them to clearly articulate their arguments. This can be done with any argument, ethical or otherwise, and it is very helpful to lay it out in this way so that you can detect any flaws in the argument. So I have done this for the argument from evolved morality, which has been stated by de Waal. Have a good look because I'm going to be asking you to evaluate it. So the argument from evolved morality. So a premise is just a basic statement on which the argument is based. Premise 1. Some mammals, for example chimpanzees, have the basic elements of morality. Premise 2. The theory of evolution suggests that humans have evolved from a species of primate. Premise 3. Natural selection is the mechanism whereby evolution takes place. The members of the species with the most desirable characteristics are able to produce the best adapted offspring. Premise 4. Morality is a desirable characteristic which enabled the production of well-adapted offspring. Conclusion. Humans have inherited morality from their primate ancestors. Evolution and natural selection can therefore explain the existence of morality in humans, and there is no need to use God as the explanation. So, how convincing is this argument of evolved morality in your view? One way to evaluate an argument is to take each of the premises in turn and consider how strong they are, what evidence there is to support them. This will help you to evaluate how strong the conclusion is. So I'm going to ask you to take each of the premises and the conclusion of this argument in turn and to consider how strong you consider them to be. And then once you've done this, you can rejoin me and we will consider it together. So here are the premises and conclusion again. Pause the video while you evaluate the argument. So let's consider each premise in turn. Premise 1. Some mammals, such as chimpanzees, have the basic elements of morality. So Duval's studies have shown that some mammals have these basic elements of reciprocity and empathy, which form the basis of morality. So this premise seems sound. Premise 2. The theory of evolution suggests that humans have evolved from a species of primate. So Darwin's theory of evolution has been supported by evidence. For example, human fossils have shown the differences between humans in the past and humans today. So this premise seems sound. Premise 3. So Darwin's theory of natural selection has been supported by evidence such as the differences in beak size in Galapagos finches. So again, this premise seems reasonably sound. Premise 4. So there are a number of potential survival benefits of morality. I'm going to talk to you about two of them, kin selection and dominance. So kin selection is an evolutionary strategy that favours the reproductive success of an organism's relatives, even at the cost of the organism's own survival. So the relative possesses shared genes. So moral action towards the kin enables the survival of the genes. And this is considered an evolutionary reason for why animals and humans are kind to their kin, their relatives. So another potential theory to explain how morality has survival benefits is the idea of dominance. So animals that show altruism, so that's selfless behaviour, which may appear counterproductive to their survival, can actually establish their dominance over competitors, which would mean that female animals of that species would want to mate with that dominant animal. And an example of a species which shows this frequently is a type of bird called Arabian babbler birds. So, on the basis of those two theories, it does at this stage appear that the premise is sound. So, the conclusion. And this is where things get really interesting from our perspective. There's many ways that you could consider this, and I'm sure we've all come to different conclusions as to whether this is a convincing argument. That's the beauty of RPE. It doesn't matter what you argue as long as you're justifying it and that your reasoning is sound. So, in my view, while premise 1 demonstrates that mammals exhibit the basic elements of morality. To suggest that this can explain the totality of human morality is a stretch. The chimps and elephants in Duvall's studies generally showed cooperation, reciprocity, potentially empathy, but it was to enable the fulfillment of their desires, usually food. The capuchin monkeys were pro-social more often, but it didn't matter to them either way, as they would always get the food. My question is, would they have been pro-social if they didn't get any food at the end? I think not. In contrast, humans have been shown to be extremely altruistic. They've been known to sacrifice food, resources, even their lives for other humans. And often this is without an obvious gain. It could be that they are doing it to those they're not related to, which dismisses the kin selection explanation. And it could be that they're even doing these things in private, so dismissing the dominance explanation of this behaviour. So, in conclusion, evolution and natural selection cannot adequately explain the extent of human morality. And if they can't, then we need another explanation. And this explanation could be God. You may recall the principle of Occam's razor. This is the argument that we should not multiply causes unnecessarily. So, in this context, if evolution and natural selection provide an adequate explanation of human morality, we should not add the additional cause of a God, because this is unnecessary. However, if the explanation of evolution and natural selection is inadequate to explain the full extent of human morality, then it's entirely valid to suggest the existence of an additional cause is necessary, and this cause may be God. So that's my conclusion regarding the strength of this argument. I think it's completely valid for us to be considering God as an explanation for human morality. So this leads us on, I suppose, to an additional question. Why does this matter? So, why do we urgently need to consider this question of whether morality has evolved? What do you think? Well, I'm going to suggest some reasons why I think it's absolutely critical that we consider this issue. So firstly, if morality has evolved, it raises the question of, is what we think is moral necessarily good? So many things which are natural or have survival benefits aren't good. For example, disease is natural, but we wouldn't consider it good or moral. Equally, killing all strangers may have some survival benefits, but it isn't good. So how can we be sure that the moral principles that we hold dear, such as justice, equality, caring for one another, that these are necessarily good? Which leads me on to my next point. If we aren't sure whether morality is good, and our morality is good, then the opposite might be good. So murder, theft, torture could all be acceptable if the argument for evolved morality is true. Or if you don't think this is the case, then you need to put forward an alternative justification for our values. Utilitarianism attempts to do this. So, how well you think it does so is something that you can consider as part of your bridging work. Further thoughts. Here's an excellent argument, an article for some wider reading on this topic. And secondly, what do you think? I've created a survey that I'd really love you to respond to, gathering some information about your own moral perspectives. And we can do some analysis of this later to find out what our class of RP students think. So what now? I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. You should complete your bridging work and the reading suggestions. You can also dip into other wider reading, listening and watching suggestions as you see fit. Purchase a textbook and bring it to your first lesson. And finally, get in touch if you have any questions, comments or queries. Thank you.